I don't know how they set that up for those guys. In other words, I like them. I like Vivek. I like Elon Musk. I like those guys, right? But just because I like them doesn't mean that they're saints. And so I hope that with the good that they bring, right, to cut government, that there's some accountability for them through whatever systems that they're involved with.
Hey, it's Jordan. I am in Flint, Michigan, East Palestine, Ohio, Tumwa, Iowa. Please support the only independent outlet on the ground covering what the corporate media covers up.
So it's like a culmination of the last 4 years. It's like the virus has been contained, you know, and eradicated.
On one condition.
Here we are, man. It's been a long ride.
We're going to make a little alteration.
The word that I've been telling everybody is congratulations, because everybody endured the last 4 to come here and really celebrate a change, right? And you're looking at all the polls. You're looking at all the interviews of people, and it's amazing how many people are hopeful for change, and I didn't expect that. I thought there was going to be as bad, if not worse, resistance as 4 years ago, and so maybe this is a time for some real change. It's exciting.
What are some of the main issues?
I'll let you also, after the rally, right over there,
really, for me, the main issue is
there is a mall right over there called the City Center, only 2 blocks away.
So
there's a
all the
beautiful
powers that were given to the federal government were enumerated, they were listed. And because they were listed, they were
the 4 buildings around it
limited.
are the exclusive
and the
place
Constitution
that
says in the 10th Amendment, I believe,
Mayor Garland,
that
when the top
all
members
the
of the
powers that
CIA,
have not been
FBI,
given to the federal
Capitol Police,
government
and
have been left
Secret
to the
Service
states
come
and
to
the
D.C.
people.
They must stay in this building
And
right
so
over here.
we built a 4th branch
At 6
of
o'clock, we're
government
going to sing some songs
that's not
for them.
accountable to
Let
the
them know
people, full of
we know
unelected
where
people
they live.
that are telling the president how to run the country, whoever the president is. And I hope this is the beginning of breaking all that down and returning all of that power back to the states and getting rid of that 4th branch of government.
You're welcome.
Now,
They hate
Trump
that.
said, he's going to drain
No,
the
we just want to go
swamp.
sing to them.
But we have these...
But they know where we live, don't they? They know all our conversations. They practice everywhere. It's time we let them know we know where they live.
Concerned about them...
And you're welcome to join us after the rally
taking over
probably 6 o'clock or 5 o'clock.
Well, one thing we know, and I think one thing that the founders knew is that power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And so they spread the powers out amongst the various branches and levels of government. So your point that you're making is that powerful men coming in from a particular sector of society having that much say-so and that much power is concerning. And though I like those guys, I would share that concern that anybody that comes in that has that degree of power and that degree of ability to influence change needs to have checks and balances. And so I don't know how they set that up for those guys. In other words, I like them. I like Vivek. I like Elon Musk. I like those guys, right? But just because I like them doesn't mean that they're saints. And so I hope that with the good that they bring, right, to cut government, that there's some accountability for them through whatever systems that they're involved with. And honestly, I don't know how you set that up for somebody who's not a government employee, but somebody who is a volunteer, who has been given the ability to at least suggest or make suggestions of the changes that need to take place. And that may be the saving grace of it, to be honest with you, because they're not elected. They're neither elected nor are they appointed to a specific government function. So even though I may want them to have a great deal of power to make cuts, it's probably safe that they can only make recommendations to Congress. And then it's up to Congress to take those recommendations and work them into the budgets that they set. Hopefully that's the check and balance that we need.
Right. Now, one more question. 2020 we had the claims of election fraud.
Yeah.
Now, 2024, there were nobody said anything about possible election fraud.
Right.
What do you think the difference was? Do you think that there was election fraud in 2020? and then none in 2024, or do you think? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, there's a lot of trains of thought for that, and I'm not sure I subscribe to any one train of thought. And what I mean by that is the specificity of your question, which is, if you kind of boil it down, which is, what's the difference between 20 and 24? Did election fraud just magically disappear? And I think that's a valid question to ask. And so I'm not sure that I have the answer for that. However, I do have some thoughts. And the first one is I do think there was election fraud in 2020. The question for a lot of people in 2020 wasn't whether or not there was election fraud. It was whether or not there was enough widespread election fraud to make a difference, right? So even for those that would be considered reasonable people by the left or the right or the center, there's still degrees of which those people would say, yeah, there was certain degrees of election fraud in various states, but it wasn't enough to affect the election. So that's, I think, a valid stance to make. That's not where I would be. I would say that there was enough in enough counties, there were 5 counties involved, that made enough to tip the scales in Georgia, in Michigan, in Pennsylvania, and Arizona specifically, maybe Nevada, because all of those were in the tens of thousands, if less, of a spread of votes, right? So where did it go in 2024? I'm not sure that it fully disappeared. So the thinking in 2020 was that those that were a part of whatever plan there was to defraud the election process, they were doing it electronically with the ability to create algorithms to add votes as needed so that it always looked close, it wasn't obvious, and that yet Biden would win. And I would be probably one that would subscribe to that. And so what ended up happening was in certain areas in 2020, the margins were much closer and probably more in favor of Trump than they had planned in their mathematic algorithms. And so they began to print ballots that were shipped via truck. And we have that one instance in Pennsylvania where a trucker outside of New Jersey had brought in gaylords and gaylords of already fill out ballots. So the point being is that I think that in 2024, we probably still had some degree of election fraud, but that it was not enough given the turnout for Trump to be able to keep it looking close and it not look like it was out and out election fraud. I do think that's probably the case.
If you don't mind, I got like 1 or 2 more questions.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Yeah. Let's see. Oh, tariffs. I want to get to tariffs. So Trump plans to impose tariffs on foreign goods. Most economists warn this will increase prices as companies will pass off their increased costs on consumers. Are you okay with those prices going up?
Yeah. So obviously, you made a good point there too, and so there's some disagreement as to whether that will increase prices on a long-term basis or whether it will increase prices of any substantive degree, okay? So prior to the leveling of income tax in the United States, and before, I believe it was the 16th Amendment, I might be quoting the wrong amendment, but I think it was the 16th, there was no income tax. It was unconstitutional to tax people's wages, right, or income. And so how was the government funded before that is the question. And the government was funded at the federal level primarily by tariffs of products that were coming into the markets that were American markets, okay? And then, of course, everything changed, and the primary source of funding for the federal government was income tax. It's lawful. And so here we are, and we see that in the first term of Trump, he levied substantial tariffs on China and in other ways that we didn't see a long-term negative effect on the economy, or a long-term, or I would say a harmful level of increase of prices. And that's what a lot of, I wouldn't say, but I would say some economists have said is that tariffs on a long-term basis, for the sake of always being there, not as a negotiating tool, but for the sake of always being there, will certainly raise prices and also could hurt the consumer, right? But on a short-term basis, as a negotiating move, which is really what Trump is known for using them for, they eventually level out. That there might be an initial spike in prices that may be negligible, it may be somewhat more than negligible, but once the negotiating has taken place and the trade situations have changed with the various countries, then the tariffs are dropped or lessened, and so the long-term effect of pricing on the economy is not as bad. So though there are those people like you suggested that are economists that said there would be a raise in prices, I would probably say in my lack of wisdom and education that that's probably true over the long term and may even be true for a short term, but maybe not as harmful in the short term and maybe would not stay for the long term as those things are negotiated out. Because remember, the purpose of tariffs from Trump's mind is strictly negotiation, to say this is what we want. We want a level playing field with your country, or we want you to take responsibility for your side of immigration, which is what he's trying to do with Canada and Mexico. And then once you do, and we see we're both working toward the same ends, then those tariffs go away. So I think it is wishful thinking and probably intellectually dishonest to say that it does not affect the pricing of goods and services. It's just a matter of, does it do so in a way that is harmful over the long term to the American buyer.
Absolutely. Wow. Okay. Great. One more question, since you mentioned immigration, and I want to get into the deportations that are supposed to happen on Tuesday.
Yeah.
Mass deportations, Trump has said, starting on Tuesday, specifically in Chicago, and then many other cities will follow. How do you think deporting immigrants will personally improve the lives of Americans? No way would ever.
So, first, before I answer that specific question about how it will improve the lives of Americans, let's go back to the whole concept of deportation of those that are here illegally. Because they're here illegally, first of all, let's be clear, that doesn't make them bad people. I think it's very important that we understand that had we been in their situation, we'd be running for the border as well. So I don't necessarily begrudge them, nor do I demonize them for wanting to come here, right? I think that if we talk about it from those terms, then we have to look at the whole of immigration and those that have thoughtfully and willingly decided to abide by the laws of the country and do so in a way that follows the policies and procedures of the country to come here, right? So if we do it for nobody else and deport people that are lawbreakers, if we do it for nobody else, we should do it for those that came here legally. I think they deserve that. For those that are waiting in line and have been waiting in line for years to be here, okay? So just to get that clarified, so we understand there's no demonization of brothers and sisters, people from across the border, from many parts of the world. So with that said, let's address whether or not it is unusual to deport a lot of people, okay? So during Obama's administration, I don't remember the specific numbers, but if I remember, he was at the top, if not the top, deporter of American presidents in the last 50 years. That doesn't make him good or bad. He just was enforcing immigration policy. People don't understand that or remember that just because it's not reported, right? But the reality is that President Obama deported millions of people, and it was done so in a humane and an orderly fashion. And you have to give him credit for that. So it's not unusual to deport. Secondly, it's not unusual to have quotas of the number of people and the type of people that we let into the country. It's been that way since the earth cooled, as you might say, right? So we've always said who can come here and how many can come here. And of course, unfortunately, that's been used to keep certain people out that maybe people don't like. Well, that's wrong. However, when it's done correctly, in order to benefit what's called the host nation, right? So that we're bringing the best and the brightest of the world here in order to make us better. Really, all of us share in that desire that immigration makes us better, right? Well, so we want to bring the best and the brightest to do so, and the people who are willing to assimilate, which was the purpose of Ellis Island, to assimilate them, right? To assimilate to our culture and take on our traditions and take on our appreciation of our form of government. So when we do that, we're doing everyone a service, right? So it's not only not unusual, neither is it a bad policy to determine who comes and how many come. That's all good common sense policy. But if we're going to do that, it's also good to tell those that have come illegally to go back and to apply to come here legally. Because everything's kind of picking up. I won't go into detail on that, but I think everybody benefits. The world benefits. We benefit. The system works better that way.
I gotta tell you, everybody here, you ain't got a snowball's chance of hell getting that.
I'm originally from North Carolina. We live in Florida now.
It's already full.
Okay, great. And North Carolina, are you near Asheville?
No, Charlotte.
Oh, okay. So I was just in Asheville, and Hurricane Helene came in and blew through that. People are still living in RVs and tents.
That's a big library right there. That's one of the biggest libraries in America, the MLK library.
Yeah, they did abandon them. Now, all I can do is just tell you what I hear in the news. And I'm not sure that I hear everything that I need to hear, right? But with that said, it does appear that they've been abandoned.
Thank you for coming and supporting your president. He loves you.
I don't know to what degree they've been helped. It appears like they're receiving very little to none. And it appears like
around Washington,
the grieving
D.C.
part of it, the deep grieving part of it is that it appears that not only are they not being helped, but an entire culture of our country is maybe disappearing right before our eyes.
Now they're seeing America has spoken
And
with
that's
a
really
hurtful.
Those are good people, hard-working people that love one another, they love the country, and that may be disappearing. They may be moving to other parts of the country. The culture that was there, parts of it may be disappearing.
Because you got love,
that's the long-term
even
thing.
in the hell.